What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers made some big decisions today, deciding to let Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba become free agents. They waived both of these contracts and are not going to bring them back at the price. This is very interesting because what this does is it frees up a lot of cap space. But here's the question now, right? What do the Lakers intend to do? Because the Lakers could have kept them and in many ways kind of failed to manage these two properly, not in the sense of like a basketball sense, but as trade assets. I mean, you're talking between these two, that was almost 27 million in cap space with the 125% rule. You're almost at like 32 million, somewhere in that ballpark. You could have gotten some quality talent for that type of exchange, right? Especially with the new CBA, you're seeing all the implications of teams just essentially letting guys go. Here you go. Just take this guy, please. Just clear off the salary. So the Lakers could have used these two as very, tradable assets to maybe acquire a quality player or even two. Think of like the Chicago Bulls, right? The idea of going and trading for DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso or Andre Drummond or something like that very likely went out the window. This also frees up the cap space, which is the ideal scenario, right? So now the Lakers officially either have one of two options. Either A, they have D'Angelo Russell, the full mid-level exception, and then the biannual exception, and then a bunch of vet minimums. Or option B is they have no D'Angelo Russell, 17 million in cap space, the full mid-level, and then they would have the biannual. So you have countless reports of Brook Lopez and Bruce Brown, those two guys potentially being targets for the Lakers to bring in. Now, both of them are looked at as targets for the full mid-level exception, not necessarily the cap space for D'Angelo Russell, but they could do that. Right, so you could, if you wanted to, if let's say D'Lo is not budging and you have to give him 25, 30 million a year or something like that, or he's going to go elsewhere. Okay, well then what you could do is you could bring in a Bruce Brown to kind of replace him, and then also bring in a Brook Lopez and get both. Right, gives the Lakers options and flexibility. It also basically eliminates any potential trade. Now, they could still sign and trade D'Angelo Russell, right? So let's say Chicago, right? We'll stick with the Chicago scenario. Chicago supposedly wants a point guard. DeMar DeRozan is an expiring contract. They might have the fear of like, hey, we're going to lose DeMar DeRozan. So you could swap D'Lo in a sign and trade for DeMar DeRozan. Now, that would affect the cap space that they would have, but it's the option that is on the table where any other smaller trades, minor trades, any significant trades, multiple trades, very likely are off the table. So this tells me one of two things. Either A, the Lakers didn't believe, or Rob Pelinka didn't believe, that he could get a deal that made sense for the Lakers. In a perfect world, you would have been able to keep those two guys under contract till the end of the season, and if you couldn't have found a trade, you could just waive them. Right? Doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, the Lakers didn't have time to see. And now it sucks because if something that the Lakers could have obtained that would have made sense becomes available, we could have went and got that said trade. Now it makes things really complicated, right? Like Damian Lillard. There goes the idea of potentially trading for him if that was ever to happen. Not saying that it would, but it basically removes the Lakers from that scenario. Now, the Lakers could bring back Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba and still keep them and sign them to smaller deals that maybe then at the trade deadline they could use to flip and use as leverage, right? Maybe at that point use a couple pieces. But for this offseason, it essentially eliminates any type of those trades. The option B, because I said I thought that I take it as two options for Pelinka. The other scenario, I think, is that there were maybe potential trades. None of them just made sense. And the Lakers were like, we're better off having the cap space and that flexibility going forward, which I'm okay with. I don't mind that at all, right? If the Lakers land at Brook Lopez, then that was the right decision. I'm not so high on Bruce Brown. I've talked about this in the video where I talked about Bruce Brown. I'm not like super high on Brown. If you're going to lose Dennis Schroeder, sure, I guess it makes sense. But he's not. I just, again, this free agency is terrible. This free agency is very limited, and the players that are potentially available and guys that make sense for the mid-level. But I mean, Bruce Brown you're almost better off splitting the full mid-level, because you don't have to put it all into one player. Instead of getting Bruce Brown, like, why not get like two guys? Could you get 2 or 3 guys that maybe could come in and make an impact rather than Brown? I think that another guard is kind of the last thing we need. I mean, obviously we need more guards to round, especially if you lose like Dennis Schroeder, right? Because then at that point you'd have D'Lo, you'd have Austin Reeves, who can play a little bit of point guard, LeBron James, who can play a little bit of point guard, but LeBron doesn't want to do it anymore, and Reeves probably isn't the best scenario for that. And then you got, Jalen Shafino, right? So again, it's kind of limited, right? But I don't hate it. Like, if Bruce Brown came, I wouldn't hate it. I just think that Rob Pelinka looks at it and goes, okay, like, there was nothing on the table or anything that I foresee happening that I really like that is worth keeping those two long-term for contracts. So the idea of a trade is very likely off the table, other than D'Lo. Now, maybe he looks at it as like nobody's really going to want Beasley and Mo Bamba. And there are reports that Mo Bamba is probably going to sign with the Chicago Bulls, so we very likely might have lost him, which if the reports of Chicago wanting him that badly were true, I would have rather gotten something, right? Would they have given it, even if you just get Andre Drummond, right? Like, at least that's a veteran center that could come in, that could start, that could come off the bench. Like, even if you couldn't have made some big swing, I wouldn't have cared. It's just like, you really couldn't have gotten anything for these two guys, right? Like, there was nothing out there. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was just the lack of time, right? Maybe Rob Pelinka was looking at it as like, I just didn't have much time and there wasn't anything around the draft. So it just, there's too much unknown, and why risk it? Why risk getting stuck with these two guys? And now we miss an opportunity to go and upgrade the roster, right? You got to keep Austin Reeves. You got to keep Rui Hachimura. You're going to re-sign both of them. And then D'Lo, they're either going to re-sign, which the reports are looking like that's going to be the case. You're going to either re-sign him, or you're going to sign and trade him for another piece, right? The only way I really see D'Angelo Russell leaving is if a real deal, like, again, like a third star becomes available, right? Because letting him go for $17 million, like, Bruce Brown isn't an overall better player than D'Angelo Russell. Like, I've seen people say that, and it's ridiculous. Like, D'Lo for his career is a 17, 5, and 6 guy, and he shoots like 50% from the field and 40% from 3. It's just recency biased at its finest when it comes to D'Angelo Russell. Now, he's not the defender that Brown was. Well, Brown isn't anywhere close to the offensive player that D'Lo provides and the playmaker that D'Lo provides, which the Lakers need. So the idea of like letting D'Lo go, there's not really anybody in free agency that you're going to get. Maybe, just maybe, and again, this is just, don't hold your breath, but maybe Kyrie, if Dallas plays with his money. I've talked about this on several times. Now the Lakers have the cap space available to sign Kyrie if he was to take a discount, right? But it depends on that significant of a discount, right? If Dallas is offering $25 million a year, he's not going to take $10 million less to go play for the Lakers. But if it's like $20 million a year, well, then yeah, he might take $3 million less to go play for the Lakers. Got to keep your core. You opened up your full mid-level exception, which I do believe you could get a top-tier guy, a real just top-of-the-line type player like a Brook Lopez, something like that. Or you could divide that up and maybe get 2 sort of blue chip rotation guys. Maybe you do use that to get Schroeder and like a Kelly Oubre or something, right? Like that, I wouldn't mind something like that. Or maybe you get a Mason Plumlee and a Kelly Oubre or something. I just, guys that are coming to mind. I'm sure there's better options out there, but you get my point. Like, if you can't get Bruce Brown, I don't think that's a big deal. The kind of logic is like you make Denver worse and you make the Lakers better. I do think Bruce Brown would be a nice player. I do think he'd make us better, but he's not at like the top of my list for guys that we need. And I just think if you can't get Brook Lopez, divide that up and go get 2 quality guys. Go get 2 that guys that you think that can come in and make an immediate impact and really kind of help shape this roster. And I think you're golden, right? Like that's the direction that I would go if I was the Lakers. And then if something makes sense for your biannual, then use your biannual, right? But that's not something that you absolutely have to do. You do have young guys on this roster that could make a lot of sense, right? Like you do, like what is Max Christie gonna do? What is will Shafino and Lewis actually make that next step? Like all of those things are very interesting. But if you could turn your full mid-level, if you can turn them into a couple guys, why not? Like, can you turn him into, I don't know, like a Josh Richardson and Plumlee and Seth Curry, right? Can you get all 3 of those guys for like $4 million each? There you go. Now you just got 3 guys, right? Like it just depends on it gives you the flexibility, which is good. But the big question is now what? You got free agency beginning tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a wild ride, in my opinion. But I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm excited to see what the Lakers do this offseason. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think of the Lakers moves and letting Beasley and Mo Bamba go? Are you okay with it? Are you not? What do you want to see the Lakers do in free agency now that they have their mid-level exception? Are you disappointed that kind of eliminates trades? Very most likely. Again, it could still happen, but it's kind of getting to the point of unlikely. But anyway, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comment section below.